All right, welcome back to the Atlanta Child Murders Revisited. This is video number 33. It's now 24 March, and we're going to go back into the Friedman court case file, Hirsch Friedman. But first, I wanted to go down my list here about Michael Thieves. Okay, um, and it purely this document purely started off as just a document related to Michael Thieves, dates related to him, corporations, and people associated with him and his corporations that I would find out. Okay, but it's become much much more than that. Okay, so what we're gonna do? This is kind of his timeline with the incorporations, and I'm still cleaning up everything and organizing it by date. Um, but what we're gonna go over here is lawyers. Okay. And, I always find it interesting that in the English language, lawyers is very similar to the English word liars. Lawyers and liars, pretty damn close. Okay. Now, don't get me wrong. There are a lot of good lawyers. There are good district attorneys that, seek justice and prosecute real hard, murderers and criminals uh, on the federal level and the state level, and even judges too. Okay, so don't get me wrong. There are a lot of good people, but in every profession, there's going to be criminal elements, snakes, or people that are in the gray box. Okay, where they walk the fine line. They don't officially commit crimes, but they assist those that do. Okay, and not that people that are accused of crimes don't deserve a good lawyer. Don't get me wrong. Okay, I'd hope that if I was ever, or if you were ever accused of a crime, that you would get, you know, your due process, get access to a lawyer, all that. We all deserve that. Okay, but knowing that we have an open system, there are people that use the system and take advantage of it. And, you know, I don't know how to say it, but there are, believe it or not, there are people that are corrupt and do things and take advantage of other people and our goodwill and stuff. So, and that is some people that are lawyers. Okay. And so we're going to go over lawyers related to specifically around Garland, associated with him, and specifically associated with Wayne Williams. Okay. And I haven't got the whole list here. If I made kind of a startup list, Wayne Williams legal team. This is going to include people that were in the trial, okay, at the beginning, and then in the appeals afterward. I'm still adding people to, because believe me, there's been a whole army of people who've been, and some working with Garland, and others bamboozled into believing that what happened to Wayne Williams was a big injustice and all kinds of bullshit like that. And again, it's my supposition. Now, when I first started off all this, what, 3 years ago, I just wanted to find out what happened. What did I see? Okay, what was going on there? I know what I saw, but what was it all about? Because I really didn't know that much. And then as I researched, I found out it was Wayne Williams, and it was Earl Terrell that I saw, and it was exactly like it was presented in that small slice of trial there. Okay, but and Wayne Williams did kill all of them, all of them. Okay, but expanded from that, we find out that Michael Thieves is associated and has his fingerprints all over this. His lawyer, okay, his lawyer, Ed Garland, okay, rich, powerful, buckhead attorney, only takes on high priced clientele, $500 an hour back in the 80s. Murderers, drug dealers, pornographers. That's all his clients are. But yet, in this case, he assists in defending, okay, a black, poor, indigent child serial killer. It's not some kind of thing that's going to really bring you more clients, okay? It's way out of his ballywick. And we're supposed to believe that Hosea Williams got together with Wayne and they said, hey, we know Ed Garland. Now, why would Ed Garland know Hosea Williams? Or why would Hosea Williams have anything to do with Ed Garland? They're in different worlds, okay? Ed Garland's in the drug pornography defense world, high-priced clients. Hosea Williams is in the civil rights world, okay? Getting your brother out of jail because he's been busted because, he got caught with a dime bag of heroin or something like that. Completely different worlds. Ed Garland wouldn't waste his time on a case like that, okay? But yet, here we have Ed Garland helping this black child serial killer. Doesn't make any fucking sense. And with that team he puts together, okay, we have the way the story goes. Well, the way the story goes is that they contacted Mary Welcome because Mary Welcome knew Homer Williams, which is all bullshit. We know that Garland assembled the team, okay? Whether it was from Hosea Williams contacting him or, maybe you got a phone call from jail from someone passing along a message from Wayne Williams. Hey, you need to get me out of here. You need to step up and defend me, or I'm going to blow the whole lid on everything I know about. And I've got pictures and tape and everything. Come see me. So Ed Garland knows he can't stick his neck out there, okay? But he's got to protect his turf. He's got to protect Michael Thieves and the Gambino operation that's going on. And so what I found out is that, and besides the fact that another thing is that my mom was dating Michael Thieves before he went to prison and worked for Michael Thieves at the Sound Pit Studio, okay? Of which the Sound Pit Studio was Apogee and the Sound Pit, run by Jimmy Jim, an associate of Ed Garland's and Michael Thieves, who takes over the business and runs it for Michael Thieves while Thieves is in prison, okay? And I remember Michael Thieves and all that, and I went through all that, okay? But, so you got Ed Garland. This is the Wayne Williams defense team. You got Ed Garland. Ed Garland knows Fryer. Fryer was an attorney for my mom, referred to her by Eugene Smith at Colony Square on child custody cases. We went into his office up on Peachtree, and he advised her. And, of course, Fryer did a little work assisting Mary Welcome in the defense, okay? And later on, Fryer would have been involved in this Czech prison swap with these German and American mob drug associates that caught in Czechoslovakia. And then, of course, later on, he would get arrested and disbarred and serve some time for laundering money for one of his drug clients. Instead of you know, transferring money to a relative. They transferred it to him, and he held on to it and never reported his income. Okay. So he lost his license. Now, Fryer knew Axum. Okay. This is where we step from the white world to the black world. Okay. And, just like there's an invisible barrier that goes down 75 from Northwest Atlanta to downtown and then kind of shoots over to Druid Hills and kind of off up into Gwinnett County. And then you've got the white world, and then everything west and southwest and south and southeast of that is the black world. And they only interact maybe at work. That's it. Well, in this case, these lawyers, they're working together, black and white, shoulder to shoulder. Okay. So you got Axum. Axum wants to take over the whole case, take it away from Mary Welcome. Wayne Williams wasn't going to let that happen. Mary Garland definitely didn't want that to happen. So Axum is axed from the case. And Axum ends up getting in trouble exactly like Fryer did. Another drug case, another drug client, another drug money transfer. And he's disbarred, goes to jail, all these things. Birds of a feather fly together, okay? And then you got Mary Welcome. And Mary Welcome interned with Ed Garland, okay? She was also, I heard her say, a lawyer down in the Virgin Islands. And guess where Jimmy Ginn got busted bringing marijuana from Jamaica? In the Virgin Islands. So they sent her off to the Virgin Islands to work their cases down there. And then they brought her back, and Maynard Jackson was running for mayor in 1974, 73, 74. He got a large political donation from Michael Thevis, who's on his way to prison. He's trying to, rehabilitate his image by supporting the first African-American mayor, trying to buy the Fox, all these things. Doesn't work. But for his large political donation, he got Mary Welcome appointed as the Atlanta solicitor, the code enforcer. And they happened to handle the porn shops, the porn theaters, the strip clubs, all the pornography places, okay? And once, from 74 to 78, she proceeded to shut down every single porn shop, adult bookstore, strip club, model lingerie, whatever you want to call it, not owned by the Gambinos, okay? So while Thevis was in jail, he couldn't kill anybody anymore because he's in prison. So he bought his way into the Atlanta solicitor's office and used the solicitor because, like I said, Atlanta was an open city. It was the Wild West, okay? In New York and other cities, it's sectioned off. One family owns this, one family owns that city or whatever. And they understand that, and they don't cross the lines. But in Atlanta, being a new city and a growing city, it's open territory. And so that's what they did. And then the Gambinos would send down their enforcers like Carl Coppola to be the muscle, to collect the money, to make sure nobody ripped them off. And to fuck up people that did. Okay? And on the legal end, they used Mary Welcome to shut down the competition. And then, she went off after 78. Thevis, killed Roger Underhill and Galante. So Maynard Jackson's like, oh, no, I can't be seen being associated with you. I can't take any money. So Thevis gives money to Andrew Young to help him get moved so he can escape. And that's when he escapes. Okay? Andrew Young wrote a letter to the Board of Federal Prisons to get him moved to a medical facility. And then that didn't matter because he got moved to a county jail for an arson trial in Indiana, and he was able to escape there. But Mary Welcome was persona non grata with the mayor's office, so she left the solicitor's office, and Garland. We saw the film of Garland with her the day she's leaving. Garland's coming to reclaim his person. Okay, Mary Welcome, and he's going to put her downtown and handle the downtown office with all the incorporations, and that's what she does for about 2 years, and then she is maybe a year, and then she's teaching at the law school, and then in '81, Garland gets a phone call from Hosea Williams or Wayne Williams, and instead of saying no, I can refer you to a lawyer or go fuck yourself, Wayne Williams, he jumps at it. And why would a high-priced lawyer that handles only drug dealers and big-time pornographers and rich people give a damn about a poor black child serial killer? It's not going to bring you more business. And my only conclusion is that Wayne Williams was taking names, writing down names, taking pictures, taking video, and he's blackmailing them. That's the only reason. He knows where the bodies are buried, literally, okay? Because it's my contention that he was recruiting these kids to get them involved in child trafficking and pornography, and maybe even snuff films, and that some of the killings were snuff films, but I think the vast majority were to silence people. They had heard to the grapevine that they were going to tell, and or they couldn't risk that kid being alive because that kid was in a hotel room with a city official or some rich buckhead lawyer, whatever, and they couldn't afford to have that kid walking around the streets alive. So Wayne was the killer. They got Wayne to get rid of him, okay? But he got too much into it, and he started probably killing people that they didn't say to kill, okay? And maybe some of them didn't know that it was Wayne, okay? So that's my contention, that he was blackmailing them. That's why you have this massive legal team, okay? So we're going to go down the names here that I've got. I've got Alvin Binder, and this is just going to be kind of a brief summary, and then I'm going to do much more extensive video another day. So we got Alvin Binder, Jewish lawyer from Mississippi, great defense lawyer, really, really good, like Johnny Cochran, at bringing up doubt, and he did his job, okay? But even after Wayne was convicted, okay, he says, Mississippi lawyer Alvin Binder said today he felt Wayne got a fair trial, okay? So that's him. And then we have Chet Detlinger. Now, he wasn't an attorney at that time, but eventually he did become an attorney, okay? And then Chet Detlinger had been a policeman until he got fired in Atlanta and was running around being a private detective, trying to hire the mothers of the murdered children, okay, to put him on the case to find the killer, since the Atlanta police couldn't find the killer. So I don't think that was the case at all. I think that Garland was paying him, okay, to be an intelligence source and find out what the mothers may have known and to squash it or misdirect them, okay? That's what I think would happen. And then eventually, Chet Detlinger, before he's trying to find the killer, and before he's got his map, and before he's saying it's one killer and he lives here and he lives over off Memorial, or lives over here and he's working over there from Memorial, and then once he gets onto the Garland legal team or the Mary Welcome legal team, he's like, no, it's anybody but Wayne. check out, you know, the Tom Terrell gay house. Check out, you know, anybody but Wayne. Okay. So we got that. And then, you know, they're constantly talking about there's no money, there's no money, there's no money, there's no money. Well, I don't know about you folks, but if Chet Detlinger was on this case for 6 months or so and there's no money, how is he paying the bills? He's got to go home and get in bed with his wife while she says, "Hey, Mr. Investigator, did you find any clues to who the real killer was? While you made no money?" I mean, come on, folks. We're all married. We all got to pay the bills. And we know that wouldn't last very long. Okay? That's bullshit. Okay. And then we got Ed Garland. He is the key. He's the hub in this circle. Okay? And we're just going to hit a few highlights. Okay? You see right here? He's got his law office. Okay? I got to go back and double check the date on this. But this is the 1970s. He's got it set up at 125 Simpson. That's a sound pit studio owned by Michael Thevis and run by Jimmy Ginn. That's also where Wayne Williams was bringing the children. So when he set up his office initially, it was right there. Here we have Atlantic Coastal Airways, 229 Candler Building. The Candler Building, that's where Mary Welcome was doing all her incorporation work. Okay? 1971. In 1972 is when Jimmy Ginn gets arrested for having 500 tons or 300 tons of marijuana caught in the Virgin Islands of Jamaican marijuana, and then that case disappears. He never goes to trial. But I do find it interesting. Look, Judy Garland. And then I got to go back and reorganize these. Here's another real estate scam set up at his office, 3151 Maple Drive. It's another one of those real estate, money laundering scams. And then they go through all this stuff about him. And then here's William Northrop. Now, wait a minute. Hold on. Let me go back here. Let's go over some more on Garland. I'm still finding stuff all the time about Garland and adding it to my list here. And I haven't quite organized it all yet. So we'll go down the list here. And I'll show you what all this means. Okay? And how it relates to the Atlanta child murders. All right. So we've got the Garland family. Now, this is when he transfers everything over to his son, Ed Garland. So Ed Garland's taken over the family business, just like this is Edward Garland Jr., just like Ed Garland took over from his dad, Reuben. Okay? All right. And then we see that Ed Garland was friends with Tom Hutchinson, okay, the owner of Confidential Security, the security agency at the Omni and the Omni International. I'm pretty certain that my mom was working for this guy right here, and the office is located right there, right behind Ed Garland's office on Piedmont. Okay? All right, so let's see. And then we've got Ed Garland, the Atlanta Sound Pit Studio, run by Jimmy Ginn Sr., okay, and Productions, 881 Memorial. That's where the pornography was being filmed right there. And then you see on the incorporation papers, Ed Garland, Samuel, and Loeb at the old Sound Pit Studio location address, which had been taken over by the IRS. And of course, Ed Garland is 2 doors down his office from Patricia McLean, former girlfriend, my mother's competition, of Michael Thevis. Okay, now she has this interior decorating studio there. Oh, and also Ed Garland represented Hustler magazine publisher Larry Flint. Okay. There's Garland, Samuel, and Loeb. And then we have this one. There's another one. I don't have a date on this one. I got to go back. GGM Properties. There's the Candler building again where Mary Welcome was at. Okay. There's Garland. This one here is a K.J. Garland. Okay. But here's Ed Garland. And yeah, I've got to get a lot more information. And that right there. And then you see him. Okay. So you see he was downtown, okay, at that Simpson address until 73. And then he moves up to Buckhead 3151 with this incorporation here. He probably moved before then. Okay. You see, he's got, these are brothers or cousins or something. Edward Garland, Edward T. Garland, that's him. And then John Garland, and then Robin Loeb. I don't know who Robin Loeb is. All right. And then we've got, you see right here, ETMG Enterprise. I don't know what that is. Edward T.M. Garland Enterprise. That's Edward T.M. Garland Enterprise. Whatever he's enterprising in 1984, it probably has something to do with laundering money for drug money. Okay. And you see right here, it's at 92 Lucky Street. It's literally 2 blocks from the Falcon Hotel where one of the victims was last seen, and just a few blocks from, you go across Olympic Park, and then you're right over there at the Omni International. And then here you go again, Garland Aviation, 92 Lucky Street, Edward Garland. Now, what the fuck is a lawyer? Okay, so you got a lawyer, okay, who's got a couple of real estate companies he's setting up. And then he's setting up aviation companies, 2 aviation. What kind of lawyer needs 2 fucking airlines that have like 2 or 3 planes? He's the legal front for a drug smuggling operation, friends. Okay. All right. Then we've got Bailey Creek. Bailey Creek is just a fancy real estate name. Okay. There he is again, 92 Lucky Street. And you know who else was on Lucky Street? Fryer. Back in the 1970s, Fryer, his associate, was at that same address, 92 Lucky Street. All right, and here we go again. Madison Maple Development. Ed Garland and Everett Royal. Everett Royal is this very, very wealthy businessman in Madison. And then you see also the registering agent, this is 1978, is Robert Fryer, his buddy again. They go back and forth, okay? Yeah, there's Robert Fryer. You see, they set up a, I don't know what this is, RGF Literacy, okay, with Robert Fryer, okay, at 152 Nassau Street. If you go to Nassau Street, it's literally 1 street over from Lucky Street, okay? And set up again at 3151 Maple. There it is again. Gillian Fryer. They reset it again in 1996. I don't know why. And then you see they set up this is probably some kind of real estate business in 12 November 96. And then in January, his license gets suspended because he's laundering money for his drug clients. Okay? And then when he appeals from his license being suspended, guess who represents him in court? William Smith, who's the son of Ed Smith, or Eugene Smith, good old Uncle Eugene, the attorney for Michael Thieves, and Ed Garland, 1997. All right. Okay, and then we see um, Patricia McLean Interiors, okay, set up right there. This is Michael Thieves' ex-girlfriend. Her address is listed as 3179 Maple Street, okay? And this address was set up in 1978 under Hirsch Friedman as a real estate business, okay? And again, this is just 2 doors down from Ed Garland. They go back and forth, folks. All right. Some of these are going to be repeats. All right. On this one, 7 November 1978. This is after Thieves is caught again. Police raid Thieves' old warehouse. The new owner's attorney, Garland, questioned the legality of the search warrant. So, we all know that Garland's working for Thieves, okay? But all of a sudden now he's working for GRC and Global, the owners of this warehouse where they find a lot of pornography, okay? Under Patricia Abbott. And guess who's representing Patricia Abbott? Ed Garland. Well, he's not really representing Patricia Abbott. He's representing Thieves because Thieves is still running the whole fucking thing. Okay? Even from on the lam and in jail. All right. Yeah, there's Garland Aviation. I just went over that. Some of these I've got twice. Yeah. RGF. Madison Development. Okay. So we go back up to the top here. Now, that's lawyer number 2. So that's Binder and Garland. Okay. Oh, wait a minute. We haven't finished yet. I forgot to go over the Thieves stuff. Okay. So on 11 October 1972, the Apogee Studios Incorporated in the Candler building, right there. And there's Garland, the registering attorney, the RA. Okay. There's Joan and Michael Thieves. And also it was amended to the Sound Pit. You see how they changed the name? 2 days after 2 days after Michael Thieves is arrested, okay, they changed the name of Apogee Studios to the Sound Pit with Gilbert Deitch, another lawyer of Michael Thieves's. I still haven't gone into him yet, who also gets arrested and charged with aiding in the killing of Underhill and Galante. And you see right there, Laverne Bowden is named as the president of the Sound Pit. Okay. And then we all know the Sound Pit is run by Jimmy Ginn, and the Sound Pit's where my mom used to work, and the Sound Pit's where Wayne Williams will be bringing the kids at 125 Simpson, okay, and have them sit in the hot tub. And the Sound Pit will be seized by the IRS 1 month before Wayne Williams gets arrested, go on auction. Jimmy Ginn will win the auction with $500,000 that there's no way it was his own money. And then he'll lose the auction because he didn't come up with the money fast enough. And then somebody, just days before Wayne Williams gets captured, okay, will break into the sound pit and dig in the walls and dig in the floors. So it's all this big fucking circle of everybody all centered around Garland. All right. Okay, so that's it there. Now we're going to jump over to William Northrop. Now, in the Monster podcast, you're going to hear William Northrop with this Texas accent or whatever the hell he's got. I think he lives in California. Going to say, have you seen Wayne, pudgy little Wayne? He couldn't hurt anybody. He was a kid that, he stayed home and his mom made him practice piano. And they're going to say that this guy killed 29 fucking people. Impossible. Okay? And then he talks about how they went and got pillowcases with his fiber guy from Kansas City. They went down to the river and they weighted the pillowcase, and they found fibers, okay, in the pillowcase from the river, trying to imply that the fibers that got on the bodies were just floating around in the river and they adhered to the bodies. Okay, that's possible. But Mr. Fiber Guy, then how do you fucking explain the bodies that showed up in the woods and not in the rivers that had the same fucking fibers? No one ever asked that question. See, that's why I didn't like the Monster, because this guy, he just recorded them, let them talk, let them spill their propaganda and never challenge. Well, wait a minute. Well, if it got on the river, okay, well, how could it get in the body that were on the land? Anyway, so William Northrop is a very interesting person, okay? He's a good investigator, but later on in the 80s, he'll get involved in the, what do you call that? The Iran hostage crisis, the arms deals. He tried to insert himself into the arms dealing with the Iranians and the Contras and all that, okay? He was a merc for hire by the CIA, okay? And he did all that. I'm going to go over him much more extensively. But it's all there, folks. He was involved with Israel in the beginning with selling arms to the Iranians, which is exactly what I would have done, because you have to look at it. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. The Iraqis were developing nuclear weapons and had missile capability to hit Israel, and they were winning against the Iranians. So what do? You make your enemies fight each other. As long as they're killing each other, they don't have time to point their guns at you. Or that's less guns pointed at you. So that's what Israel did. They sold Hawk missiles to shoot down the Iraqi Air Force airplanes. They sold them tow missiles to blow up the Iraqi tanks. And then the Americans got involved through Northrop. Okay? He said, well, we can use up our stockpile in Israel, or we can involve the Americans and tie in the Lebanon hostages. So these Americans that have been taken hostage by Hezbollah, okay, the Iranians were arming them and had influence over them. So Northrop went to Ollie North and was it Poindexter and Abrams and said, hey, what we'll do is we'll sell. Okay. So so Israel will load planes and fly them to Iran. They will offload tow missiles and Hawk missiles, okay? And then Iran will use that influence they have on Hezbollah to locate and release the hostages, the Americans and British that were being held hostage in Lebanon. And it worked, okay? But the Israelis said, hey, we're kind of helping the Americans. We're not getting anything besides, dead Iraqis. We want a little more from this. So the Americans agreed and said, look, what we'll do is we'll take, um, we'll take our stockpile. See, America has stockpiles of weapons in Israel. That way they don't have to wait and move stuff there. So just take from our stockpiles there and give it to the Iranians, and we'll just, say that it was used in training and exercises, and we'll restock it. Okay. And then you get Oliver North all involved. And so then what they were doing is they were selling those weapons to the Iranians for 3 times the cost. They were replacing the stock, using that money, okay, to buy weapons for the Contras off the shelf because the Boland Amendment said they couldn't use, congressional money to do that. So that's what they were doing. So it was all off the books of private enterprise. Unfortunately, what happened is that, you got people that were bringing down drugs in airplanes and then flying back drugs to make, more money. Okay. I don't know if supposedly Northrop was involved in that. But anyway, he got arrested. Eventually, it works its way through the court. They throw out the case. And then he ends up in Israel. Okay. And in Israel, he set up an aviation company. And Israel was trying to develop their own fighter jet. They already tried one called the Lahab. It didn't work out. And, there was a lot of pressure from American aviation. They didn't want the Israelis to develop their own independent indigenous fighter plane because they were afraid that they may sell it to the rest of the world and undercut them. So they cut back on the research funding from the U.S. government for that plane and forced the Israelis to buy American planes, F-16s, F-15s. Okay? And Northrop came up with his own idea for a cheaper airplane. And he set up this company and got a lot of money from the Americans, got a lot of money from the Israelis. And basically, he just blew the money on hookers and blow, okay, and cars and shit like that. And the Israelis, they did an investigation of it, and they shut him down. They kicked him out of the fucking country. And they said, you owe us fucking millions of dollars. Don't ever come back. And that's William Northrop, the guy who said that Wayne Williams was completely innocent. And he worked supposedly for free, right? Because there's no money under Garland doing an investigation. Again, it's just like his thing he did in Israel. He knows Wayne Williams is guilty as hell. All he can do is just come up with, fake suspects and fake evidence and hopefully point the jury in a doubting perspective. And, there's nothing that he could do. And he knew it, so he just wrote it for the money. All right. So we'll go down and we will keep going over lawyers here. All right, hold on one second. All right, so there's our boy Gilbert Deitch. He was actually indicted in assisting Thieves in the murder. And I don't know if he got convicted or whatever. I'm going to do a lot more research on him. But you see right here, he's right downtown, right near the Candler building. I think this is like right around the corner. Okay. So that's him. And there's our boy, Hirsch Friedman. Okay. And wow. Again, we read the documents. We know he worked for the Gambinos. We know he's an associate of Garland. Not much with him involved in the Atlanta child murders, except for the fact that He worked for the Gambinos. He worked for the government undercover. He got his legs blown up because he was running against Mary Welcome for the Fulton County solicitor. And they didn't want him doing that. They wanted Mary Welcome to take that position so she could go after, of course, non-Gambino businesses in Fulton County and shut them, porn shops, strip clubs, stuff like that, and shut them down. And so they blew up Hirsch Friedman, and that's what they did. But so you see right here, one of his first incorporations I found was this 3179 Maple Drive. It's literally 2 blocks down, or 2 buildings down from Garland. He was also the attorney for the Gold Club under Carl Coppola, which is now the Trader Joe's right there on Peachtree. And of course, that Gold Club Trader Joe's was, the parking lot was right behind the studio at Shadowlawn where Wayne would bring the kids to screen them and record them. Okay. But there's Hirsch Friedman, and he sets up this address. He basically buys this real estate building, 3179, and then inside that building, Patricia McLean in the 1990s will set up her business. Okay. You go with, in these groups, they're very tight. They go with people they know and trust. Okay. So that's why they're always, you see them running into each other back and forth. And God, Friedman just goes to town. Okay. He's got this address here, 33 Kelson Drive. It's a house in a very, very nice part of town. I know this area because I used to go to synagogue up there. And hold on one second. But I personally don't think that he lives at this address, because why would you list all these businesses where you have your kids, your wife and your kids at? Okay. So I think this is like a rental. He's probably got it rented out to some wealthy clients, whatever. And then just, like Jimmy Jen used all those Lakewood houses that I talked about. This is what he's doing with this, because, I mean, he gets blown up, but he's not blown up at this house. They never say exactly which house, but that's a pretty damn nice house. And it's my understanding it has about 4 or 5 bedrooms. Okay, so you got like 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 1, 2 in the back. And if he got blown up there, you can be damn sure the neighbors would not want him still there. Okay. So let's check out something. Okay, there's no telephone poles. Okay, so you see this box right here? This is, I believe that is like the phone and internet. Okay. And then the power lines, I think they run under the ground here. Yeah. You see that? What is that, like a Lexus or an Acura? So it's a nice house. It's about a $500,000 house. It always amazed me, the houses in Atlanta just have like no fencing, no gates. I mean, in Portland and in Los Angeles, you'd have gates and hedgerows and all kinds of stuff. But so you're going to see this address, 335 Kelson Drive, on every single incorporation document he has. Okay? From the 80s on. You see? So he may have lived there once and then moved someplace else. But he also has this P.O. box, which is downtown. So I think his office is there somewhere. Okay? But so let's take a look. So he's got FAPC. So this is Friedman and Associates, practicing counsel or power of attorney or something like that. And then he's got another one, Receivables Recovery Corporation. This is a lawyer collection agency, okay? And he's got this J.E. Friedman. He's got himself listed as a registered agent. And then J.E. Friedman, I think, is the wife. It's like Joan or Jen Friedman. And then he's got a partner, Mark Shopson, at 25 Powder Springs Street. And we're going to see this address and the Kelson address show up again and again and again. So what that tells you is he's got all these clients. They're setting up fake real estate companies, whatever their corporation. They don't want people to know where they're located. So they go to Friedman. He registers them at this address, okay? And then, they're good to go. Oh, this is like a law office downtown, you see? Downtown Marietta. And you see, it's always a real estate company. Manning Properties. Is that 25? Let's see what the address is here. Oh, it's 26. Okay. It's across the street. Hold on one second. Yeah, right there. So what is that? And it could be a bogus address. Let's see. There's a restaurant. We'll find out what that address is here. Hold on a second. 25. So this building, he's probably upstairs right here. There's probably an entrance in the back. Or the side. Yeah. So he's got some kind of office. It could just be a bogus address. Okay. All right. Or it could have been that address back in 1992 and it's no longer there. And now he's got, so what you're going to notice is that he's got a lot of just real estate offices related to his law firm, and then very few client businesses, like a piece of cake catering service. Okay. There's our Kelson address. There she is, Jane Elizabeth Friedman. It's got to be his wife or daughter. Okay. And then Burt Street in Hapeville. That's probably the real owner right there, and that's probably where it's at. Okay. That one I don't really worry about. Trustee Accounting and Reporting Service. Okay. And there we go. There's the address, Kelson. This is probably the owner right there. Now, this William Carlisle, sounds familiar. Okay. And I could have sworn, no, I guess not. And you see, his real address is in Lawrenceville. Okay. and there's the 25 Powder Springs, okay? And then we've got FICOR Development Corporation, another real estate money laundering scam, okay? It's Hirsch Friedman, 25 Powder Springs, J.E. Friedman, okay? There's another one. And you'll see here, 28 March, 29 March, FICOR Development, FICOR Limited, okay? How much time do we have? Okay, we got 5 minutes, all right? There's his wife, downtown, Friedman Law Firm, okay? No one has their law firm at their home address, okay? And then he's got this guy, Kyle Eds, and then he changes the name from Friedman Law Firm to Friedman and Epps, practicing counsel. And then 20 May 1994, it's got Delonix Corporation. Have no idea what that is. But again, it's got another fake address up in Ackworth. And you remember that Thieves, McLean, and then Jen had a P.O. box since the 1950s. And even Jimmy Jen Jr. still uses the same post office box in Ackworth in the same zip code right there. And if you look at this address right here, okay, Patricia McLean, on some documents that she has, okay, list, I think it's like right here, just one neighborhood over is Patricia McLean has an address listed in Ackworth right there. And then like one street over are the owners of the Shadow Lawn studio where Wayne would bring the kids. They're listed just one street over from Patricia McLean. So they obviously knew each other, okay? So he's listing this address, which is probably another rental, okay? Nice house, though. It's an older house. And, you know, it could just be also these addresses, he could be using these as his switch off addresses, okay? So he'll get his client to buy the real estate in a transaction, okay? They'll sit on that property for a year, and then he'll transfer it to the next client. So he's got two addresses here, $500,000 properties, okay? That's a good chunk of change. That's a good way to launder your money. You can sell it to them for $700,000, whatever, okay? And this is why real estate prices go up, because you got people that are buying properties that are worth $300,000. They're selling them for $600,000, double the price, okay? The transactions go through the county assessor's office, and then all of a sudden, he's assessing everybody's property at a lot higher rate. Well, the owners of the property like that, okay? And so when they go to sell, their property is now doubled in value in 10 years, okay? This is why your rents are going up, folks. This is why people can't buy houses, because they're using real estate. They'll let it sit for a year empty, okay? Go around at night in these residential areas. Drive around at night, not 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night after the sun's gone down, and see how many of these houses have no lights on, and write down the addresses. You're going to find, out of 100 houses, you're probably going to find probably 10 that are going to be completely empty and have nobody in them, and have been for sale or not even for sale. They're just sitting there empty. They sit on these properties, they write off the value, and they end up paying no taxes also. So it's a double whammy on helping them. It helps them launder the money. It also helps them with their taxes. Yeah. So we're out of time. All right. Till next time, folks. Bye-bye.